You are listening to This Week in Clown World with Ben and Hobbs, so sit back, relax, take your black pill, and enjoy the show.
I love that intro. It's so good. It's that tiny, imperceptible little honk right there at the end is like a cherry on top. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You may be wondering what happened to Tuesday's show and why it's Ben and I and not Token and I. Unfortunately, Token has some personal issues going on in his life and his job. He's going to be taking a sabbatical from the program. So, instead of his normal animated antics, you're going to get the smooth, dulcet tones rather than slamming a Monster Energy drink and going wild with the Token and Hobbs show. Sit back with your black pills and a tumbler full of bourbon for bed.
Yeah, I do not have the energy that Token has, so I apologize in advance.
It's okay. It's usually a much smoother and more level-headed, but not quite as exciting
maybe
show.
not as entertaining, but it is what it is. So we'll be changing it up a little bit. Thursdays is when we're going to be doing the show now. If you're listening on the podcast, probably be on the weekends when it will show up on the podcast. And Nathan's not associated with the show anymore. He just can't keep up with the demand of doing a podcast. I mean, it's not an easy thing to set aside a whole half of your evening when you've worked all day to work on a podcast.
Yeah, I know. When I first started doing the show with you guys was right at the tail end of my school when I was working and going to school full time, and it was like 4 hours of sleep a night on the weekend or on the week, and then the weekend was the only time that I had to myself.
He's still going to be working the memes on the page. He'll still be posting that up. I'm sure he'll pop in here once in a while. But until then, you're stuck with us. I probably need to come up with a fancy frame like Nathan had for Token and Hobbs here. We've got the clown. So yeah, we're gonna call it This Week in Clown World. We'll give you the same summary of stuff that's been going on with that libertarian lean that we have on the show, and the same sick sense of humor that you guys are used to.
Yes, we try to keep things a little light and a little bit funny, but still give you guys some pertinent news and a little bit of our opinion.
Pertinent news. I mean, what was the hot thing this week that you thought?
Probably the fact that it looks like we are on the edge of the cliff to saying goodbye to Dr. Fauci, and he is hanging on by his fingernails to relevancy, and it seems like they're going to Spartan kick him right off.
What was up with this book? Be the fall guy. It was on Amazon that it was taken off. Is it back yet?
I haven't heard anything about it being back. It was going to be his book. They were going to publish it on Amazon, I think. And it was called Expect the Unexpected. And it was about his leadership during the COVID-19 pandemic. And then all of a sudden, his emails got released by FOIA requests. Everybody sees the Facebook fact check says, no, his emails weren't leaked. They weren't leaked. They weren't leaked. They were released to the public due to a FOIA request.
With lots of redactions.
That's a distinction without a difference, man. It's lots of redactions. But fortunately, Dan Bongino pointed this out a few days ago. All of these redactions have a justification code at the top of them, and he went through a few of them, and each one of these codes is put at the top of the redaction, and you can go through the code listing and figure out what the redaction was. Now, the two that he brought attention to, one of them was between Fauci and Mark Zuckerberg, everybody's favorite social media tyrant. And the redaction was due to uh, like patented or insider information, or information that would I can't really word it. It's like it would put at jeopardy Facebook proprietary information. So it's like, what were they that was Facebook's proprietary information? And one of the other ones was, I think it was between Fauci and this Christian Anderson guy. I think it was between those two. And the redaction code was that it would jeopardize an ongoing investigation. So who is being investigated and
now the thing with those
what?
redactions, and I don't remember the case. It was during maybe the Obama years, maybe it was during Trump, but the Republicans controlled enough of Senate that there was some report released and it had all these redactions, and the Republicans overruled the redactions and had them release the unredacted copy. And it was stuff was only supposed to be redacted if it would, was national secrets, thing like that. But it turned out most of these redactions were just publicly embarrassing to the people involved. So that kind of revealed everything.
Right.
I'm going to guess that's the case with a lot of these redactions. They're probably publicly embarrassing to people involved, but we don't have a Congress that will overrule those. So we'll probably never know yet. Yeah.
Yet. 2022 is right around the corner, and tell your neighbor Adrian I'm coming for his job again.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for those guys holding the seat at this point.
No, they are really cocking it up.
Now they're publicly infighting. What did Ilhan Omar say? That the United States government has done things as bad as Hamas and the Taliban, and it's like, well, maybe.
Yeah, just in different ways. We don't have masked soldiers out there beheading infidels in the street, but we do blow up wedding parties, and when it's called to our attention, they're just like, shit happens in a war, man. We didn't mean
probably
to.
If she had gave some
that doesn't make
examples,
it any better.
She wouldn't have been roasted by her party, but now they're, the Pelosi gang, all the friggin' 70 plus are thrown her to the wolves.
Yeah, and that is something that we've called attention to quite a bit over the last couple of years, that you do have a distinct ideological split within the Democrat Party. You have the old school, what I've heard some people refer to as like the business Democrats, like Pelosi and Schumer and the Clintons and things like that. And then you've got this new crop of younger Democrats that are coming in that lean more socialist, more populist. And then you got, their, I guess, figurehead or whatever, which is Bernie Sanders, who's 80 years old. He's a red diaper baby, but he's more ideologically aligned with them.
Well, and what they more and more, it's looking like the current administration is just blue MAGA, especially with the border now. That was a pretty big story.
Well, yeah, that does on its face, and I was hoping you would bring this up, because I was going to say something about it in the chat, and then it completely slipped my mind. Politicians in general, and Democrats in particular, are very, very good at loudly and publicly saying one thing and doing another. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden's recent talk about actually enforcing border security kind of flies in the face of what's actually going on down there. They're telling the Border Patrol to lay off. They're engaging in catch and release. We've got actual video evidence of large crowds of Central and South American immigrants coming in, being given envelopes full of money and flight itinerary and sent to God knows where in the interior United States. So they can talk all they want about how no, don't come here, stay in your own country. But when rubber meets the road, they're letting them in
Well,
by
I
the
wish I'd
tens
done
of
more research on
thousands.
this if I brought it up, but do you know what the deal is with the smuggling children over the border? Why are these coyotes pulling up to the border and just tossing toddlers over the border fence?
There is a great deal of speculation, and I don't know. Have you ever heard of the
Mm-mm.
Drinkin' Bros podcast?
Oh, okay.
It's the Black Rifle Coffee guys, and they have a podcast called the Drinkin' Bros podcast. It's usually pretty good. I've listened to a few episodes of it. One of their guys, Dan Holloway, he's kind of like the head guy that runs the podcast over there. He's like a ex Army Ranger, Special Forces, and he's done like some contracting work and stuff like that. And him and his associates and his contacts that are both in and out of government right now, as far as like law enforcement and whatnot, they've been doing some kind of off the books investing, figure out what exactly
Mm-hmm.
is going on down there. And there are a lot of children being smuggled. The speculation is that it's that they're being sent to either family members that are already here or of some non-governmental
Mm-hmm.
organization to reside within the United States. No, but they're they're being sent to reside here in the United States until an inevitable amnesty is passed, at which point they will be used as an anchor for chain migration to pull their entire families into the United States and then be a more or less captive voting bloc for
Well, it seems so
left-wing
weird though.
politicians.
It
That's
doesn't even
one
seem like
theory.
it'd work that way if they're just dropping them off over the top of the border. I mean, I've seen multiple stories about that. It's
Right.
just they're honorable enough to uphold
Yeah.
that part of the bargain that they're just going to get him to the States, so they just toss a 3-year-old over the border wall. I guess I don't.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the other theory. The parents or the family or whatever says, uh, here's X amount of dollars. We don't care how you get our kid into the United States. Just get him into the United States. And then, you don't give them any specifics about how they get into the United States. It's just they get over the wall. Okay, they're in the United States now. We held up our end of the deal.
I'm
We didn't
surprised
say
they
that
go
they had
that.
to
I'm surprised they go
go
that
to their
far because
aunt and
the
uncle's
parents
house.
have to prepay. I mean, they could have just drop a truckload of them off in
Yeah.
Tijuana or something for that matter. I'm surprised they followed through that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is definitely not just a case of onesies and twosies being paid a few bucks. This is there's pictures from the southern part of the border because the Mexican government is getting pissed off about this because it's not just Mexicans trying to get into the United States. It's everybody from South America coming through Mexico and to get into the United States. And some people from as far away as Africa and Eastern Europe are booking a cheap flight to Guatemala, Ecuador, El Salvador, whatever, and then migrating their way up north through Mexico. And there are pictures on the Mexican side of the border of these piles of plastic wristbands, color-coded wristbands that the coyotes and the drug cartels are actually using to in people that they're smuggling into the United States. And once they get into the United States, they cut the wristband off and okay, you're on your own now or whatever. But this is like industrial level human smuggling going on down there. And our government, on one hand, seems like they're sort of not taking it seriously. And then if you look a little bit deeper, it's like they're facilitating it, which is really scary.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that their whole campaign was come to the border, everything's fine, and they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
It's you always try to say always choose incompetence over being willfully evil. I think they were just so incompetent they didn't realize how screwed up it was, and now they've got a mess on their hands.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that possibility too. I mean, in one of the presidential debates, Joe Biden lit word for word. I think that once I'm in office, we need to I think surge the border. And for those people that are fleeing, everybody in the world was like, "Oh, free food."
Well, I mean,
They open the
that's got to
doors.
piss these countries off. I mean, look at it at a state level. What if Nebraska was losing all their residents to, I don't know, say Colorado or some other border state because they were saying, come on in, we'll take care of you. I mean, losing
Hmm.
residents, it puts a drain on. I mean, you need people to keep your system going if you're a state, if you're a state meaning
Right.
country, whatever. I mean, look at Japan. They've got a crisis coming up. They don't have enough people to keep going. I mean, if you're losing all these people, a drain up to the United States, I mean, at some point you're going to get sick of that shit if you're a South American country, I would think.
Right. It's a drain of their human capital. It's a drain of the people who would be starting
Mm-hmm.
businesses and employing residents and making life better. And it's doubly bad because this isn't. I'm not saying it from a place of hubris or whatever, but somebody who is capable of upper middle class entrepreneurship in some place like Guatemala or Mexico or El Salvador or any of these other countries where they're coming in is lower class
Right.
employability
That's a good
here
point.
in the United States. And it's not because they're stupid or stupider than the United States citizens. It's because there's a language and a cultural barrier that they will have to also fight to overcome, in addition to the normal competition that takes place in an industrialized first world economy. And they're setting themselves up for failure by moving here en masse and taking those like lower level jobs, which will be the only thing that will be able to employ them. So, and it puts a drain on our system as well, because you can't just let hundreds of thousands of barely English literate migrants come into your country and then starve to death on the street. So they have to be
Yeah, and I had
taken care of as
a
well.
Facebook friend who posted something. It was shared. It was like some guy was saying congratulations to his dad. He finally got his citizenship. He was from some South American country, and his dad had worked at Walmart for the last 10 or 15 years. But this guy was like some sort of computer engineer or something in his home country, but he didn't speak any English at all when he got here, and there's credentialing, I'm sure. But this guy
Yep.
was a very intelligent person in his country. And here he is in the United States working at Walmart, just to the reasons you said. And I mean, think about what type of, that has to be occurring all across the board down there. But
Right.
it's gotta affect them eventually, and they're gonna get sick of it. But I don't know what a South American country would do to prevent it. Just try and tell us to get our shit together, I suppose.
You know, I was actually thinking about it today, and I had a conversation with somebody at one of our customers. I went to drop something off at one of our customers, and I was saying that there could be between our country's businesses and these South American countries where we just tell them, hey, lower your tax rate, say business is open, we have motivated cheap labor down here that is looking to build your crap, and give likes or some type of an incentive for these companies that find it too difficult and too expensive to manufacture in the United States, to outsource it to Central and South America, because I would much rather have our stuff be made in Mexico or Guatemala than in China, because at least the governments, and more importantly the people of Central and South America, don't actively hate us and want to see us fail. And honestly, Mexico deserves to be a great country too. It's beautiful, and it's terrible what's happened to those people down there that's forcing them to do
Yeah,
what they're
even
doing and
China's
coming
starting
up
to take
here.
notice of slowing population growth and whatnot. Did you see that story? They relaxed their what, they can have 3 kids now,
Yes.
which seems stupid. If people aren't
Yes.
having 2 kids, saying you can have 3 is it going to suddenly make them want to have 3 kids? Uh-oh.
Right. So
Is
let
this
me
some
put on my
Agenda
tinfoil
21?
hat
Does it say
here
Agenda
real
21
quick
hat
and
across the
say,
front or what?
no. This is. I think that China is getting ready to throw millions and millions of men at the military machine and is expecting a glut in their population size once these people get killed in a large-scale war that they are going to instigate against the United States. Because right now, because of the one-child policy that they've had for the past few decades, most families, when they have their one child, they choose to have a boy, which means that there are about 80 to 100 million surplus men in China right now.
I think you're wrong on instigating it with the United States. Wouldn't you do it with Russia or India? At least get some land out of the deal, or maybe some, yeah, Malaysia or something.
Taiwan,
Yeah.
South Korea, any of those. I mean,
U.S. by
not instigate
proxy.
like a war on mainland United. Yeah, exactly. You know, they'll pick a fight with Japan or Taiwan or do something in Hong Kong, and it'll poke our bear. And what that'll do is it will give them the home field advantage, while also instigating a fight with the most powerful, technologically advanced military on Earth. There'll be a meat grinder. They'll shred and economically devastate their only near peer rival on the geopolitical stage, which is us.
I mean, I still think it's going to be about land coming up. I mean, look at India. India is like one of the only countries outside of Africa that still has a very high population growth rate. And not in global warming. I'm not one of those people that denies it. I might disagree with causes, but there's large parts of India that are going to become impossible to live in, even with air conditioning. It's going to get so hot and humid that nobody's going to be able to live there. They've got to go somewhere, and China's right there with a lot of land. Or Russia. I don't understand how Russia isn't paranoid. They got 2 of the largest countries in the world right on their borders. And they've got all this open land that if the climate does shift in temperature, Russia is going to become prime real estate.
Yes. And I'm willing to bet that there are parts of Russia that have never seen human feet. So they've got not only prime real estate, but they've also got untapped natural resources that we don't even know about. Geological surveys have not been done completely out there because the land is inhospitable and it's expensive. But I mean, for all we know, there's gold deposits, uranium deposits, rare earth minerals out there that are for the taking, which, I think that, one of the smartest things that we could do here in the United States is buddy up to Russia and be like, hey, you've got untapped natural resources. We've got the capital and the technology to exploit it.
Yeah,
Let's
I've never really
deal,
understood
right?
that schism between the 2. I don't know if we're just pissed off about the old heads are still pissed off about the Cold War or what. That's got to be.
Yeah, that's got to be it. Right, because Russia right now militarily, they're an
Russia's GDP is less than California or something. Didn't I see that? Or it seems bizarre that they were ever a serious threat. Even I don't know if that was just some Cold War propaganda by the United States at the time, but it seems weird that they were ever even considered a real threat. I mean, nothing's changed much in Russia between the 80s and now. Why were they such a threat? Just because they had nukes, I guess.
Yeah, they had nuclear weapons, and they had that. I guess revolutionary zeal that was kind of tapering off, and you had a propaganda ministry that was very good at whipping the public up and feeding them lies, like right up there until it wasn't, when everybody was saying there's no truth in Pravda and
Speaking of
Izvestia.
propaganda stuff, I wanted to hit on this while we were on South America. I expect these guys to go the way of Lebanon. Did you see what El Salvador did in their country with legal tender?
Yes, that is something that you knew would be coming. And one aspect of El Salvador adopting Bitcoin as legal tender that I haven't seen discussed, it actually makes for a much bigger deal than most people are letting on, is that El Salvador does not have their own domestic currency. El Salvador is tied to the US dollar and the US central bank. They use our money. So the fact that they're foregoing it, or at least adopting Bitcoin as a parallel money, should have been the number one.
How much does that
story.
suck if you're a country that uses the US dollar and then we go off and print $3 trillion bucks? That's
yeah. Well, this is what happens. Yeah. You go out and you find an alternate. It's like, if you guys want to destroy your currency, which is also our currency, then we'll find a different currency. Yeah. And good on them.
I can see a throw over of the government there in the near future, maybe.
Yeah. It's got some big Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi.
It doesn't seem like the U.S. is as big on Latin America intervention as they used to be once everybody was kind of cued into it. Now you go back and look in the past, and that's probably part of it's definitely most of the problems down there is all the fuckery we did in the Latin American countries with picking and choosing leadership.
Yeah, it's a huge part of it. The School of the Americas, I think, is still an active thing at the Air Force Academy in Colorado Springs, isn't it?
Yeah.
The School of the Americas, it was basically like a CIA cutout, like for propagandizing and covert operations in South America.
Really, I never heard of it. I'm surprised the Air Force was into something that high speed.
Yeah, you can look it up later. It's been a long time since I read up on it, so I'm probably getting some of the details wrong. But it's a very, very controversial program that they had back during the Cold War days. They called it the School of the Americas.
Radio America, and it was. Were they working in tandem?
No, not really. That was. God, it's been so long since I read up on School of the Americas, but it was definitely some shady, underhanded, open secret
Fort
type
Benning,
shit.
Georgia.
I guess that must have been. I thought School of the Americas
might make more
was
sense
in Colorado
then, I
Springs,
guess.
but maybe it wasn't Fort Benning. Like I said,
I'm kind of jumping around here. We hit on Russia, and you had a Russian story you sent to me. Russian ready. The title is Russia ready to discuss human rights. Biden wants, but starting with the arrest of protesters who stormed the Capitol.
Yeah, when I first read that headline, I was thinking that maybe they were going to demand that they arrest more of the Capitol rioters, the January 6th people, but then you dig into the article a little bit, and it's like, no, they're saying that the arrest and persecution of these people is a human rights violation, and it's like, zing.
On that whole thing, those guys got what was coming to them. You can't half-ass a revolution. History has shown that over and over and over again. Nobody in that group, in the upper plane of that group, had ever cracked a history book, apparently, because if you try and overthrow the government and you half-ass it, it doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that it was just some mob mob mentality. They got caught up and swept up in the moment, and things got a little bit
You
out
don't
of
think
hand. I
there's
don't think
any
they were trying to.
there? You don't think there's anybody in that crowd that thought they would be implementing a God Emperor Trump at the end of it? There had to have been a not small amount.
Them. But I mean, really, who wants to start a revolution and comes to the Capitol building unarmed?
That's what I'm saying. You don't half-ass that
doesn't make-
shit. Why? I mean, what are you're storming the Capitol? I mean, what I don't. It just blows my mind. It seems there was no idea of what they should do.
No, and that's what it is. It was completely unorganized, just mob mentality. It's that scene from the Boondocks. That old cartoon, the Boondocks. He's like, everything's cool until some throws a chair. Somebody threw a chair, and then everything went crazy.
I don't have any sympathy for him. I'm sorry if people were caught up in that, but go read your history books. If you're gonna get caught up in some shit like that, don't be a useful idiot. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they were. They were useful idiots. I've heard some right-wing commentators refer to it as Reichstag 2.0, like some instigators instigated and whipped up the crowd, whipped up the frenzy. People thought they were going to do something that they had, no intention or ability to originally do. They got swept up in the moment, and now some of them are rotting under the prison.
Maybe 100 years removed, maybe a little bit more, of everybody being shot at the end of that. Shot, hung, whatever.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that there's only one death, like, directly involved. They shot that gal, Ashley Babbitt, and
even the outcome of it. I mean, 100 years ago, all those people would have been hung from gallows probably for attempting something like that. Machine gun, right?
Or just machine gun
so
down
I
right
have
there on the steps.
sympathy. I mean, all right, well, let's steer off of that one. That's a dark topic of overthrowing governments. Speaking of their, let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find this media here. I sent the picture to you of the guy they were fighting for. Trump had an issue in a speech earlier in the week. Apparently, earlier in the speech, Trump had his pants on the correct way. Later in the speech, boy, I can't find it. I feel bad about bringing it up now. Later in the speech, Trump came on stage. His pants were on backwards, and he was wearing a very large Attend. So I don't know if anybody else saw this story. Let me save it here. I'll try and. Sorry, folks, I'm new. I'll get it up later. But apparently, Trump had some issues with his bowel control or his bladder. And the Twitterverse was going wild, posting pictures of Trump wearing his pants backwards with apparently a very large Depends on. And, people forget they are electing some old damn people into these positions. I mean, Trump's 74? I mean, how old's Biden? Biden's even 76. Yeah. That is pants pooping age for sure right there. And it's disgusting that these people are our leaders to me, that people are that old and being put in positions of power. And I don't know how we get away from it. People elected Biden in there. I have no idea what they're thinking. He's turned into blue MAGA.
Yeah.
The Democrat base is losing it for him. I don't at this point, I don't see him getting a second term. I think they've got him pumped so full of adrenochrome that he's going to make it.
How many little children do you think they have? Hey, there we go. Going back to the human smuggling at the border. The young kids are the adrenochrome farm.
Damn, this podcast is shut down now. We cracked it.
Little little Central and South American kids are being fed a steady diet of fear porn, and their adrenaline glands are being harvested.
Good grief. Yeah, but speaking of adrenochrome, what is Alex? We should have a segment on this week in Alex Jones. What was up with AJ this week?
Oh shit. Yeah, he is big on they're brought up by some Senate Republicans, or a bill brought up by some Senate Republicans to ban experimentation into human animal chimeras.
They've got fish people in tanks.
This was a real bill that was brought up by Senate Republicans to ban research into human-animal chimeras, and it was defeated along party line votes and one Republican dissenter. So it is, for all intents and purposes, legal in the United States to make human-animal hybrids. Coincidentally, 2 days after this bill was defeated in the Senate, USA Today, in partnership with Netflix, rolled out a controversial ad campaign for a new movie on Netflix called Sweet Tooth, which is about human-animal hybrids in a post-apocalyptic
so you're saying they're
world.
softening us up to get us used to human-animal hybrids?
Yes, this is the limited hangout. This is the desensitization. This is, I think that the UFO thing came a little bit too hard and people saw through it, so they had to go a little bit
What do you mean they saw through it?
Human-animal
what's that
hybrids.
about? I don't.
As soon as they started saying that they were going to be declassifying the UFO paperwork, and you had all of these high-ranking military generals and admirals come out and be like, yes, UFOs are real. There are things out there flying around that we cannot identify. People were just like, oh, yeah, any day now, the alien invasion is going to come and it'll unite the world under one world government. That was the meme for about 2 or 3 weeks. And now, have you heard anything about UFOs?
Well, they had that
the
report that's going to be released, and basically said, yeah, there's UFOs. We don't know what they are. So, is that? I don't know what to think of that.
I think that they were gonna soft roll out something about UFOs, and like I said, they were gonna have a first contact thing, and the benevolent aliens were going to demand that humankind put aside its difference and ascend to the stars with them, and under a one world government, of course.
I don't know. I kind of get the impression that we're under like quarantine because we're just so shitty. Maybe most of the other if there's aliens out there, they evolved from peaceful herbivores, not dangerous killer monkeys with with redundant organs and and violent tendencies. Maybe they're just snagging some of this for bioweapons. Who knows? I mean, we're getting into what was that show, Coast to Coast here? Yeah, or I used to watch it.
Well, George Norrie?
Bell.
Yeah, it's George Norrie now. He's also a big friend of
So
Alex
that was
Jones.
the big thing
He's
from
been on the
Alex
show
Jones
a few
was
times.
chimeras.
Was the human-animal hybrids and the law that got shot down in the Senate, and that movie that's our season? I guess it's a TV show.
So what's the clown
on
world
Netflix
interpretation
right
of
now?
this? What's the
Sweet
end game for human chimeras here? So the furries can finally get their tails, or what?
No. So his theory about it is that the genetically engineered human-animal chimeras will be in a legal gray zone of neither human nor animal, and therefore they will not have the associative rights of human rights or animal rights. Speaking of animals, I've got kittens. They will have neither human rights nor animal rights, and therefore can be exploited in ways that you couldn't normally do to animals or humans. There's also like an organ harvesting element to it, and a bizarre sexual ritual
So
sacrifice
what
element
he's
as
saying
well.
is if somebody's 51% chimp, 49% human, they can be treated as an animal.
More or less, yeah.
I mean, are we approaching?
I mean, it goes a little bit deeper than that.
We know the Roman Empire ran on slavery. Are they getting sick of waiting for robot slaves, and we're going to have human hybrid slaves instead? I don't.
Yeah, no, it's all still kind of open ended and very new, and it's a little bizarre to tell you the truth. I for one welcome our genetically
But
engineered
we have
cat
somebody
girl
here, the John
overlords.
Rigo legend. That must be a book where humans are the galaxy's door kickers. I could see. I mean, people kind of underestimate how tough people are, but if you look at other animals, I mean,
Yeah,
a feral human would probably be quite dangerous.
yeah, it definitely would. And another thing that was on Alex Jones,
Judge Joe Brown. Okay, yeah.
I sent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the old TV judge. He was on Alex Jones 2 days in a row. And you know what? I got to tell you, everybody go to band.video and watch his 2 interviews that he did with Alex Jones, because Judge Joe Brown and Alex Jones together was a wonderful thing to behold. And he was kind of talking about this very thing. He's like, we are the apex predators on this planet. We kill better than anything that has ever walked or swam in the earth. There is nothing that we can and haven't killed and eaten just because we can on this planet. He was talking about how there's like a cultural conspiracy, or maybe it's just people bumbling around in the dark to kind of almost make us feral. He's like, all the crime and everything that we have going on in the world right now is this confluence of bad ideas that started in the 50s and 60s in academia, trying to take the man, the human, because war is a man's game, and so if we do away with manliness, we'll do away with war. And it was an interesting. He was on the show for an hour and a half the first day and an hour the second day, and that was a very, very good couple.
So
of
he's saying
interviews.
they're trying to get rid of masculinity to do what? What did he think their end game was with that?
Well, the idea was, he said that it started out in the 50s and 60s in academia. He said that you had this cabal and this union of beta males who couldn't crack it in a white man's world, feminists who hated men, lesbians who wanted to be men, and homosexual men who feared men. And they decided that they all got together and decided that if they did away with masculinity, then they would end up doing away with war and conflict, because war and conflict is what, it's a man's game. And what they ended up doing instead was by doing away with maleness and masculinity, what they did was they did away with the check on the pressure valve, because a man is not violent, a beast is violent. A man is capable of great violence, but he has it voluntarily in check. That is what it means to be a man. You are capable of dealing a great amount of harm to anyone around you.
What's that saying?
Under control.
To be peaceful, you must be capable of great violence. Otherwise, you're just harmless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a harmless man is not a peaceful, or a pacifist is not a peaceful man. He's harmless. A peaceful man is a man capable of great violence who has it voluntarily under control.
The last, I mean, up until geez, maybe even 100 years ago, men were basically just a tool for society. I mean, they were the primary tool of a society that you would use to expand your borders,
Mhm.
build your society up. It was all the men that you have. Um, and now that we're past that
Right.
stage, kind of, for the point in time, maybe it'll come back. There really isn't, men aren't needed as that tool anymore. So they have to kind of redefine their role, I guess. And I don't know that that's an easy solution.
Right. We're in a kind of a cultural sea change right now, where the ideal of what it is to be a man is being redefined, and not for the better. Um, we're seeing exploding crime rates. We're seeing illegitimacy and a lowering of both IQ and fertility across the board. We're an empire in decline, and
Probably
I don't know
until
if there's an easy way out
um,
of it.
space travel is something, will men be needed as a tool again? When you can load a bunch of idiots into a spaceship or
Mm.
to risk their lives and go to a rock and build something. Uh, I mean, that was the last great use of men, was when they expanded out. Um, well, I guess colonization, which it sucked for some people. And they went out and they built civilizations. I mean, it kept expanding outward from Rome, basically. Um, I guess the height of the usage of men, I'm going to say, is probably the Roman Empire. And from there on out, men were used as a tool until present day, to build civilizations and for warfare.
Right. Yes. And there's also something to be said for the fact that when you have, to a large degree, the sort of equalization of men and women in the sort of post-industrial economies that we have right now, where most
Oh,
as well as a
you
man.
broke up a little bit. You start in the economies and what?
No, I said in the sort of post-industrial economies, we have this sort of an equalization of the value of men and women, because in most jobs that we have outside of like serious
Mhm.
strenuous physical labor, men and women are, they can perform the jobs, more or less equal
Right.
once you average everything out. And unfortunately, our culture still values women and children simply for existing, and they value men for what they bring to the table. And when a man, with very few exceptions, doesn't bring anything special to the table, it fills him with a kind of an existential dread and a sense of worthlessness, which is why we have things like the incel movement, we have the MGTOW movement, we have men who are just checking out of society and checking out of life. You have spiking suicide rates and all sorts of terrible things that are going on with men. And then to add insult to injury, you have people who are just like, huh,
Well,
lol, off
and
yourself,
back to
man.
my Roman Empire comment saying that's a peak. I mean, before that, I mean, if you have something tribal, a man still has a value for building up that community. But at that point, a woman also has probably an almost equal value with children and whatnot. I'm saying at the Roman Empire, the man's value was just so much more because they were that more useful
Yeah,
for what you could do with a large group of men as opposed to a large group of females. And I think we've been returned to maybe
right.
that equalization of pre-Roman Empire, where a man and a woman has about an equal value, but there's just not as much for men to do. I mean, the man pre-Roman Empire was still doing manly things. To sound sexist, the manly things like hunting,
Yeah,
lifting heavy shit, things like that. Now a man doesn't need to do that. He's not needed to hunt or lift heavy things. He has to have the same
right,
value that a woman has doing the same type of tasks. And I hate to say it, but tasks
right.
like that, a man values probably he's probably at a deficit to a woman on some of those things. Is obvious by test scores.
Yeah. Well, that's it also just kind of feeds into what I was saying. Judge Joe Brown on AJ yesterday, he had the actual numbers, and he was saying something like 55% of college enrollees are women, but 75% of college graduates are women. And it's something like 84% of whatever is beyond that initial 4 years are women. And just the numbers just go up, 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 and up to the point where it's something like 52% of the workforce in America is female. Go back just prior to World War II, and that would have been unheard of, because we had a certain degree of an advanced economy, and we had the labor saving devices and everything to where women could have been in the workforce at an almost equal level to men, but they weren't. And then it was after the Second World War, I think, that there was a bit of an idea, or some brain trust somewhere decided that, hey, why do we have 50% of our pop staying at home when they could be in the workforce paying income taxes? And then everything just kind of went downhill from there.
So, I mean, that's where we're going to be until. I've always said that, if a society figures out how to fix their men, they'll fix a lot of issues. I mean, that's what I think the main problem is with a lot of issues right now. The inner city violence, all that. Men are broken, and we have no idea how to fix them. Outside of a massive war, which nobody wants. But that goes back to your China thing, trying to fix their men problem.
Exactly. They're right now they're doing a two-prong attack with it. I think that they're trying to instigate a war with the West, America in particular, but Europe, Russia, Australia, New Zealand, everybody around them. I mean, even Japan and South Korea. You're trying to instigate a war which they can throw millions and millions of their surplus men, as well as a cultural PR campaign for the remasculinization of the men in their country. They call it the Man Up campaign, where they're saying that beta soy boy is not the way to go. A K-pop listening, makeup wearing, highlight in your hair having beta boy is not the ideal, and you should be shunned from society for aspiring to be it. They are pushing hard to remasculinize their culture.
The best answer is, we're gonna, hopefully in the future, you'll get the boys together, get a space caravan to Mars, and go hang out with Elon and build some shit.
You're not wrong. There is no great frontier anymore, and Elon Musk might be the savior that we need with his space exploration.
Go work in the Elon Musk salt mines on Mars, I guess, and build something.
Maybe. You're gonna have like black lung and
red lung.
Die in the mines. Yeah, red lung
Mars
and die in the iron
Dogecoin.
Mines and.
On that, I guess we're at an hour here. I guess we'll close out the inaugural This Week in Clown World.
I think
we'll get Token on here, guys. So
pretty heavy subjects.
Send off. He's just working his ass off and not getting anywhere because of inflation. So I feel for the dude. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll be on
boat.
Thursday, 9 Central. Check out Rhodes, the2liberty.com. Check out our merch. Maybe if you buy enough merch, we'll get Nathan back in here.